Hey guys, welcome to Dan Reviews It. Merlin here with me, and my name is Dan, and we're going to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming today.
That's cool.
Yeah, this is now the third Spider-Man we've seen in the last 15 years, I guess.
That's right.
You had the 3 with Tobey, 2 with Garfield, and now this one with Tom Holland.
1.5 with Tom.
1.5, I guess you could say that because of course, the Civil War connection. Really one of the breakouts.
Yeah,
The Civil War. Everyone was. I mean, that was a good movie, a great movie, really.
Yeah,
but
War's good.
One of the things everyone talked about is Spider-Man
And Ant-Man.
and Ant-Man.
More
much
specifically,
too.
Spider-Man versus Ant-Man scene.
Yes,
Yeah.
which gets referenced here.
That's like the first thing.
It's like one of the first things. So generally, the story here is they decided not to really go origin.
Thank God.
Yes.
Who's Spider-Man?
Because
How did he get his
I'm
powers
so
again?
sick of it.
Everyone was happy about that.
Everyone was happy about it, and I think they should be. So it kind of starts off, he's already Spider-Man. Civil War has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
He's interning with Stark Industries is what he tells everybody.
Yeah.
But really, he's a part of Stark's team because of the Civil War. But then he kind of distances himself from Spider-Man. Because he's on to doing other things and Avenger things, and they're moving Avenger headquarters, and Happy Hogan plays a much bigger role than I expected in this movie.
He's like his
John
guardian,
Favreau.
kind of.
It's sort of, yeah. His Watcher.
Yes,
as you will.
A Buffy reference.
Since we're doing Buffy episodes.
Yeah.
His Watcher. But, things are amiss in town, and at first Peter Parker's a little bit bored with the routine because he's just kind of helping people, basic stuff, some of it not even going that well. And then enter Michael Keaton as, what's the name of the villain?
The Vulture.
The Vulture, of course. In another very memorable, very great Keaton role.
Definitely.
There aren't too many bad ones I can even think of. None, really.
I mean, even in bad movies, he's still pretty great to watch.
He still shines.
Yeah.
So he at the beginning, the very opening scene is this quarry or construction unit that he's a part of that sort of gets shut down. So he decides that he's not going to stand for that. Let's take vengeance on the city and everyone, and basically destroy it and get rich while trying.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you've got Peter Parker doing high school things, and
he's got a buddy.
He's got a best friend who we all love. Really the comic relief of the movie.
Oh yeah,
I would say, and the girlfriend, who I forget who plays her. Is it Zoe Kravitz? I forget who it is.
You
but
probably
anyway,
know. I'll take your word for it.
It's somebody, obviously. And and there's a twist with her character that's great.
That was good.
I really think it's one of the best superhero movies of the last few years. I mean, we've had some good ones recently. Wonder Woman was great. Guardians 2 was also great. Other than that, though, in the last maybe 3 years, I can't say too many are great.
Well,
there's been some goods.
I remember it was one of the big conversations on Film Fanatics that came up a lot was, all these superhero movies were almost getting tired of them.
Right.
And,
is it too much?
And maybe that's because, especially with Marvel, a lot of these movies are good. You don't really expect too many bad ones anymore.
Right.
But to have one that really stands out because they're so good may be a little harder.
Yeah.
And I will say that I think maybe one of the reasons why Spider-Man Homecoming is really popular, which I agree with, and I think it's very good as well, is because it feels very different than a lot of the Marvel movies.
Yes.
Because with Peter Parker in this one, which even more so than I think in any of the other Spider-Man movies, you see that he's definitely not perfect at his job. He spends a lot of the movie kind of being the butt of a lot of damage and really messing up and being a flawed hero, which especially in his younger days and really throughout much of the character's writing, he is.
Right.
I mean, other than his powers, he's probably most defined by the fact that he's flawed. And being a young kid here, we see that.
Yeah, we do. And I think my favorite part of the movie, really, which is something I mentioned to you directly after we watched it, was that it's really one of the true great high school movies of the last few years. I mean, the high school stuff in this movie is so true to life and so great, and the emotions he's struggling with as a high schooler, I felt really rang true. And I think that also helps it stand out a lot above any other superhero movie because every superhero is a full-blown adult.
So this is one that actually does appeal more to teens and young adults.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly some relationship things in other ones. You know, the Tony Stark Pepper Potts thing is a thread throughout Iron Man.
Yeah.
One of the weaker elements of the Thor movies, I think we can agree, is the romance there. You know, and there's obviously, you know, like Guardian sets itself aside because of the, you know, some of the characters aren't human, for example.
It's off in space.
And it's in space. You know, Ant-Man obviously sets himself apart because he's a thief, and his abilities are certainly unique.
Yeah.
But here, it's just kind of everyday life, and this kid just happens to have superpowers that, like you mentioned, he's still struggling with figuring even out how it works.
Well, gee, Dan, it sounds like Spider-Man.
Right,
you know.
but it's something that, you know, and look, you and I enjoyed the first Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But what they did with that movie, now that I sort of have yet another new Spider-Man to compare, not just to the Tobey Maguire version, is that he didn't seem at all like a high school kid.
No, and I've talked to some of my friends about it, and most of us agree that on film this is probably the most accurate interpretation of the character because he seems like a kid.
Right.
And
he looks like a kid.
And he seems like a geeky kid, too.
Yes.
You know, and I guess with Tobey, he seemed like a bit of a geek, but he wasn't really that young for the role originally. Right. Grew up pretty quickly, obviously. And Andrew Garfield, you know, kind of the skater, hipster vibe.
He's like a snarky Spider-Man, which is, I'm fine with. It's a different interpretation.
The snark worked. I mean, I like Garfield's Spider-Man, but
I did too.
To think that I guess he was a loner, but he was never really that geeky, dorky, innocent kind of kid. It wasn't as conveyed as well, I think. And
because of his smarminess, let's say, you know, it was like, was Emma Stone, you know, was just oh, you know, fall in love with him because he's got it all. You know, here we actually see Peter Parker struggling in that department and others.
Pretty much every department.
And you're right, pretty much every department. He's, you know, not that great in school. He's, you know, the love interest is not really working out. He's having issues with his hot aunt.
And he can't keep his secret identity from anybody.
That's right. So, yeah, I would say, look, I do like The Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
I can say it's probably up there in the top maybe 3 or 4 Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
You got Spider-Man
picks from now.
Right, now there's many. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was not good.
It was a bit flawed,
yeah. And then, of course, you know, original Spider-Man 3 is god-awful. You know, 1 and 2 are pretty solid entries.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Maguire movies I haven't watched in probably... I saw Spider-Man 2 a second time after theaters, but the first one and the third one I only ever saw in theaters. So, I mean, it's been a long time since I saw those movies.
Give them a rewatch sometime. I think it's kind of funny.
They're not good, right?
I mean,
at this point,
I've always kind of had like mixed feelings about them because I grew up with them. I like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I think that they're a good interpretation of the character, different, very comic booky, but at the same time, still not as close to Spider-Man as I'd like it to be.
Okay.
And you know, I think that Tobey's Spider-Man went for a lot more camp because that's what Sam Raimi does and was trying to emulate the '60s Spider-Man. Yes. But Tobey wasn't that funny.
You know, he's not much of a comedian.
And Andrew Garfield, they went the other direction. Let's make them more modern. Let's make it like the darker comics.
Right.
He's snarky and funny, but is he that geeky?
Right.
No.
And is he 30? Yes.
Is he 30? Yes. Both of them are like 30, minimum. And here we have Spider-Man starting out as a kid again.
Yeah.
He seems like a kid. He seems like a dorky kid. And I think that combined with a lot of his struggle and the way it's presented, even though it is updated, it does feel like a classic Spider-Man comic. Very well balanced. I mean, in that sense, I was going to ask you, but I think it's the best, you know, representation of the character. I mean, at least compared to the other ones. I do think
I agree.
With Marvel, you know, having Spider-Man finally, I think they are doing an excellent job with it.
Yeah, Sony really just doesn't know what to do with anything, it seems like. You know, I mean, Ghostbusters obviously was extremely mixed. The Bond movies have been a bit hit or miss lately.
Yeah.
Skyfall was great. The last one, Spectre, was not that good.
I barely remember it.
And the one before that, Quantum of Solace, people don't
also
really
barely
like.
Remember that, yeah.
So, you know, Sony's properties are really
fluctuating.
just kind of falling apart here.
Falling
So they are, I mean...
That's why they needed Marvel's help. Like, okay...
Exactly.
Help us get money.
Right. And I forget what all the breakdown is with it. Marvel, Disney gets X amount of money, and Sony gets X amount.
Don't quote
whatever.
me, but I think it's basically... Well, someone actually told me this.
Sony gets the bulk of it, right?
Sony gets the bulk of it
Yeah.
because they still technically own the movie rights to the character.
Right.
But they're allowing permission for Marvel to have Spider-Man so they can have him in the Marvel movies.
Right.
Because they know Spider-Man is such a popular character.
Yes.
They put him in the Avengers movies, they're going to get more money anyway.
Right.
So... It's a win-win.
It's a win-win, and look, Disney's not hurting for cash. They can, they can say all right to that arrangement. I'm sure.
Here's $1 billion. Give me Spider-Man.
Right. Well, and listen, Age of Ultron wasn't that good
compared to the first Avengers. No.
So to add Spider-Man in Infinity Wars
gives it a little special.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to have Spider-Man in Civil War as well.
Well, let me ask you, Dan. Did you have any problems with the movie?
Well, it's a little long, like most of the Marvel movies.
Maybe a tad.
By maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Listen, in all honesty, best twist of the year for me. I mean, it was just like...
All right.
You were about 3 seats down from me, so I don't know if you heard the gasp, but I mean, the whole theater erupted in a gasp.
I don't think that was new for a Marvel movie, because Marvel movies aren't known... I mean...
No.
I don't want to say they have bad writing, but for twists and stuff, it's
not their forte.
It's not their forte.
Yeah.
So for that twist, everyone literally went silent, and a lot of people were like, "Oh no, it's him!"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh," and I was like, and I will say, because regarding the twist with that character, I love that villain. And the twist is in regards to the villain.
Me too.
And I will let you know, Dan, that is not in the comics. So,
I asked a big Marvel nerd at work about that because I don't know, and he'd already seen it twice, by the end of opening weekend. So I said, "Listen, is this a thing that happens? Or was no one expecting this?" And he was like, "No, it's not a thing."
No, and that's why the theater went so silent.
Yeah.
Because half the people there are probably Marvel nerds.
Well, we went Thursday premiere. I mean, so a lot of those people were comic book geeks,
big fans.
Yeah.
So if they knew there was going to be something, they knew everything about that character.
Right.
I know I do.
Right.
Because he's actually my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Is that right?
He is. I've been looking forward to seeing him in a movie for years.
God, and played by one of your favorite actors.
Yes, who was Batman and Birdman.
Yes, he sure was.
And Michael Keaton does a great job. But the twist with him was what surprised me. I was like, "Well, that's clever," because I would never have guessed it.
Yeah.
So that was a cool move, and I think it's because he's not exactly like an A-list Spider-Man villain necessarily.
Okay.
So
I'd never heard of him.
So he might not have drawn as much attention.
Right.
But the fact that he got to take the limelight in the movie and be played by such an actor will make him, I think, a more popular villain.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, I thought it was pretty cool because one of the issues that I think we can agree on, a lot of people have with the Marvel movies is their villains are pretty one-dimensional.
Yes.
I think we have a villain that rivals Loki in complexity.
I mean, he has motivation for sure. He has brains, so he's actually
interesting.
He's not bumbling around like some of these villains.
Yeah.
I agree. Very complex character. Especially
by Marvel standards.
Well, especially given what happens throughout the course of the film,
and they add more layers to it and add more stakes and that the climax is pretty good.
Yeah. So in terms of the negatives, let's talk about them. There aren't many.
No, not really.
Like I mentioned, maybe trim 5 minutes. It's not like super long for a Marvel film. I think Wonder Woman could have trimmed a little bit more.
Yeah.
I know that's DC. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying
you're right.
for comic book movies.
Well, most of them they're pushing 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So here's my issues. I thought the CGI in the last battle scene was pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
Didn't care for that. And I want to get your take on this because I sort of went off a little bit on this in my solo review of the Transformers.
Okay.
I am really not a fan of the overly cursing in these movies that are clearly going to be seen by 5-year-olds. It makes me mad. I understand it's PG-13 because of action. I get it. But, this was a huge problem I have with the Transformers. I think there's more cursing in that than a lot of PG-13s. But they dropped some bombs in this movie First of all, I was sitting next to a 4-year-old. I was on the end of our group of friends.
Not just cursing,
so
but
it was
sex
me.
jokes,
And
too.
yes, there was a joke about porn, which I was okay with. Like that, I'm fine with because that is going to go over a kid's head.
Probably.
And it did because he looked at his mom and said, "What's porn?" Or like,
Oops.
what are they laughing at? Whatever.
Thanks, Marvel.
And she's like, "Oh no, he's helping Spider-Man." It's just he's like, "Yeah, but why is everybody laughing?" Like he knew that there was something he didn't get. So okay, that first throwaway joke, that's fine.
Okay.
Because it'll go over his head. But the amount of S-bombs in this movie and like, God damn it, and like all this stuff, and it's like Spider-Man of all the action superhero characters,
Right.
I would say
the least amount of cursing.
is just the most kid friendly because he is kind of a kid. I mean, people love Batman, they do. But, are you going to take your 4-year-old to Dark Knight Rises? Maybe not.
Probably.
You'd take him to the '89 Batman,
Maybe.
But at the time, because you didn't know.
well, people were upset. But
people were upset with it.
Yeah.
But I understand we're in such an age now where you say whatever you want. And as we all know, in my everyday life, it's Curse City.
Yeah, I know.
But this movie is obviously going to be seen by little children, and that does make me kind of angry. Is it a reflection on, the movie itself? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's me being overly critical.
Well,
but I just think I don't know. You don't need it. Like, it's not Logan. Like.
No, it's not Logan.
And even the X-Men movies are not. You're not taking your 4-year-old to see X-Men. I don't think. Maybe.
Not these days.
But not these days.
Well, all right. I guess to give you a little bit of a counterpoint, I think you might be nitpicking a little.
I know.
And I understand where you're coming from. I do think they probably could cut it down. I'm sure Transformers is much worse.
It really is. I was shocked. By Transformers.
I think a lot of the cursing in Spider-Man was probably pretty quick though, because I don't really remember a lot of it.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think a big chunk of people that get to see this are probably teens or adults anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like kids are exposed to a lot of that now. Like sometimes you'll go to movie trailers that aren't necessarily for R-rated movies, and you'll hear curse words in those.
Yes, and I think that's a little much too.
So
I don't even have kids, and I just it just makes me angry.
I don't know.
I guess I think about my nephews, and I'm like, would I want my 6-year-old nephew that I'm taking to see Spider-Man to hear this? No, I wouldn't.
I definitely think that there could be an issue, but I also think there's far worse movies with cursing out there that
I agree.
Parents should avoid. I grew up watching more adult movies anyway, so I think I was exposed to cursing earlier.
Did.
So
I did not.
I don't think it's affected that too much. I like to curse too, but I think over the top, really gruesome violence and sexual stuff is probably a little more frightful for a young child, perhaps, than like a cursing.
See, I would agree with that, but apparently no one cares about violence. I know I'm in the way minority of that. Well, that let's take our 3-year-old to go see Dunkirk or it's like.
Well, I don't think that rarely happens. Yes, sometimes these things do happen.
Yeah,
but no, I think that's getting into a whole commentary about
American
society.
As you will see, it does not affect my grade. I don't think
massively
about this movie. But, you asked me for some negatives. There aren't many.
No.
So the ones I have are going to be a little nitpicky because, honestly, I loved this movie. It was great.
I could see your digging. I mean, I only really have one negative. It just kind of speaks to what you mentioned about that last fight scene with the Vulture. I thought it was kind of dark. It was a lot of close-ups and weird camera work. Plus, CGI seemed a little rushed there.
Very rushed.
Compared to the rest of the movie, which seems great. That like 10-15 minutes was just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
I don't know. Though I did like the fact he utilized some of the alien technology to create like the openings.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was a cool thievery technique.
Yeah,
but
that was cool.
That's the only negative I have, and it's a pretty minor one.
I know. It's one of the best movies of the year. I would say best superhero movie since certainly Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy area kind of thing. It's the first Marvel Universe movie, because I know Guardians 1 is part of the Marvel Universe, but not really. I would say it's the best Marvel Universe movie since the first Avengers.
I mean, I'd have to take some time to think about that, but that sounds like it could be believable.
Yeah.
It's definitely... I definitely liked it more than Guardians 2, and I liked that movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
and I might have liked it about as much as Deadpool. Deadpool was pretty great.
Yeah, Deadpool was pretty great.
Deadpool was hard to beat. Logan was very good.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely up there. It's definitely one of the best ones in years for sure.
Yeah. Well, I give it an A.
I'm there with you. I thought it was an A too. Not quite an A+.
Not quite, but really almost.
I almost could give it that. Even when I was kind of complaining about that last fight scene, I'm like, it didn't bother me that much. Mm-hmm. Honestly, like
that. I think that is really the only thing that dropped it from an A+. I mean, I don't know if I've ever given a superhero movie an A+.
I don't.
Maybe.
I've always wanted to ask you about that.
Well,
because it seems like what's the one thing that always holds you back?
Maybe in retrospect, the first Iron Man is probably an A+.
It's a pretty great movie.
I have seen it in more recent years. I mean, at the time, I probably only gave 1 or 2 A+ a year.
True.
And the year Iron Man came out, which was, remind me, was it 2010, maybe?
It was 2008, sir.
Oh, wait, you're right. The original Dark Knight year.
Iron Man 2 was 2010.
Okay.
That
one's not quite as good. And that same year, I mean, Dark Knight is an A as well. I almost gave that an A+ too.
The 2008 was kind of the superhero movie renaissance, I guess.
Yeah. So I can't think. Maybe Up was that year.
Yeah, I think was that 2007.
I don't know, but that year I only gave like 1 or 2 A+. That was back when I really, I mean, it had to be pretty perfect for an A+. Nowadays it's like,
you see
if there's like a minor flaw and and I can get past it, I try to give 4 or 5 A+ a year, just to acknowledge that yes, there are some amazing movies. I would say in retrospect, probably that first Iron Man is the A+. I mean, I think that's the pinnacle of superhero movies. I don't think the first Avengers deserves it.
It's pretty long.
I don't think Deadpool deserves it, although it's fantastic. And Guardians 1. I mean, these are all A movies. Mm-hmm. But there is more than just a minor nitpick to hold it back from that A+, I think.
Okay.
In all accounts.
I mean, I've given a few superhero movies A+.
I believe you gave Guardians.
Guardians was an A+. And I don't know if I've given too many other ones A+, though.
No.
At least ones that we've talked about in the last couple of years.
I mean, it's hard to get an A+. I mean, I see probably 200+ movies a year, and 3 to 5 get A+. It's rare.
No, and I guess superhero movies might have like the little things that bog them down.
Yeah.
I mean, even to be honest with you, even the movies that I liked that were based on superheroes, I might have given those grades to, probably may not technically deserve them, but I still love them so much.
Yeah.
So I might play fast and lose with that a little bit, but I don't hand them out too frequently either.
No. But I think that first Iron Man is definitely deserving of it if I were to regrade it.
For its importance, too, in retrospect, maybe.
It really is, yeah. And really, got the ball rolling on the MCU.
Exactly.
More than anything. So, not just for superhero movies
in
general.
It's kind of the model that everyone's trying to reach because it was such a hit. Everyone's trying to at least be as good.
And some have come
Man.
close.
Some have.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually harder for Marvel to beat that. But I think they set the bar high right off the bat.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But all right, so that's Spider-Man: Homecoming and other topics.
Marvel-related topics.
Marvel-related topics. Join us for other great reviews on the channel. We're gonna have I'm gonna do one for Baby Driver, a solo review. We've got X-Files reviews, Buffy reviews, Riverdale. Many things to check out, and of course your channel always cranking out great content about movies, anime, all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's gonna do it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and check us out on Facebook at Dan Reviews It. So we'll see you next time. Bye.